We're fresh off the plane and straight to the mic. It's Kendal Briles or Sonny Dykes. Oh, yeah, it's locked on Horned Frogs. Play my music.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? I am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, host of the Locked On Horned Frogs podcast, the number one daily one-stop shop for everything TCU athletics on the number one podcast network. That is Locked On Podcast Network. Every day, your team every day. We're closing out today's episode with an interesting look at a narrative that it's time to dead this narrative. This narrative does not need to live any longer, and it's this: TCU is the winningest team since Sonny Dykes took over, and this is going to be a theme of the episode, because right before we talk about that narrative, we take a look at Sonny Dykes' comments after the Iowa State loss. I am stunned and disappointed that he took this route, or specifically made this comment, but like I said, we are fresh off the plane, straight to the mic, because one of them got to go. Y'all remember the game. One's got to go, but I don't have 3-4 options. I have two. It's Sonny Dykes or Kendal Briles. This is, at the end of the day, this is what it's all about, because I called for heads if TCU were to lose this game. Now, what I am not doing, and let's be very clear, I am not calling for immediate firings. I am not calling for mid-season firings. Do I think that that is still on the table? Maybe. But after this game, no, I think that's a bit extreme. I think that's a bit too far. But what I will say is, one's got to go, Sonny Dykes or Kendal Briles, because what you've done in this game is repeat an unfortunate trend. And that's the fact that every time TCU has lost in 2025, I can point to the offense. And that is a shame, because as the engine of the team, you should not be the engine of defeat. At the end of the day, that's just point blank. I can come on here and do all the vocal inflections, and I can raise my tone and say one's got to go. But at the end of the day, I think one thing we can all agree on is that the defense, it wasn't supposed to be the better side of the team, but it has been, in my opinion. In my opinion, it's been consistent. I don't think that the offense was terrible, but unfortunately, I can continuously point to critical mistakes in the games that TCU lost towards the offense. Let's try it. Arizona State, 2 late interceptions, or excuse me, an interception and a fumble, 2 late turnovers that gave Arizona State the lead and clinched the game. We can go to Kansas State, pick 6. I think they had 2 turnovers that ended up leading to touchdowns by the defense. Not they got in scoring position. I think the Kansas State defense, if I'm not mistaken, scored 2 touchdowns on their own. Those are critical plays. In this game right now, I can point to the Jeremy Payne fumble, and I want to correct myself from on Saturday night. I said it was Trent Battle. That was not the case. I got the 26 and the 6 confused. That's on me, but I do want to come on the record and correct that. This was not Trent Battle who had that fumble. It was Jeremy Payne. And ironic that the best run of the day, because you can't run the ball. We know that. TCU can't run the ball. And on the best run of the day, you cough it up. You could argue, on a day where the Horned Frogs struggle to really run the football consistently, you finally got some moments. You finally got some motion. You got a little bit of momentum. And the minute you had your best moment, you also had your worst moment. I think a lot of times I come on here and I talk about the quarterback play, because I think there have been moments that the quarterback has had that were bad, that led to some real nasty situations for the Frogs. But it's not all on the back of Hoover. It's not all on the arm of Hoover. I think sometimes they put a little too much on the arm of Hoover, but they also can't run the ball, nor do they want to run the ball. So that's just what happens. Everything gets put on the arm of Josh Hoover. But we're not even here to talk about Hoover today. When it comes down to the offense, too many times I've seen this team fail offensively. Too many times I've called for, this is the moment they're going to do it, and they don't do it. Sonny Dykes, Kendal Briles. At the end of the day, who's going to be the one that's out of here? Because I think it has to come down to those 2 guys, because it's not Avalos. I think if Avalos is, if Sonny Dykes is retained, Andy Avalos is good. This guy is the coordinator that is safe. He's done a lot with the defense for TCU. He's had star players on multiple levels of the defense. I think he is safe. I'm talking about home plate safe. Can't say the same about Kendal Briles. I almost feel like Briles has to go. And this isn't any shot at him. I like some of the things that he does, honestly and truly. But like I said, that offense has failed too many times. And the reason that Briles has to go, is because somebody has to pay for what the offense has done. And we can point to Sonny Dykes all we want, but sometimes a coordinator is going to be the shield for all of the bullets that come the direction of the head coach. So either Briles is gone and he's out and TCU gets a new offensive coordinator, or Sonny Dykes is gone and Briles is gone with them, because whoever the next head coach is not going to keep Kendal Briles. That's the way that I view it. I appreciate y'all for coming in. I appreciate y'all trickling in. I know this was an impromptu live stream, so thank everybody who's in the chat with me. But this is the way that I view it. And this is just me being completely transparent. This is me being completely honest. And I've said this before. I do think that Dykes is a victim of his own stance. Or when I say stance, I mean the setting or the standard that he set. But the truth of the matter is this. TCU is supposed to be an offensive team. TCU is supposed to be a team that if you give them the ball with 3 minutes left, the ball with 2 minutes left, they can drive down and get you a field goal. Now, I understand that that's a tad bit shaky, and they have had their mistakes on the kicking game. But you're supposed to be able to get into field goal position. You're supposed to be in touchdown position. They don't do that enough for me. They just don't. And I'll tell you something that has began to bother me more and more as time has gone on. And this is directly at Sonny Dykes. It really bothers me that the only time that I saw visual and undeniable frustration out of him was when he was being questioned. I've said this before, so it's not like I was okay with it at the time and now I've grown to dislike it. I like that he stood on, hey, we're this, we're that. We're the winningest team since I took over in this conference. And I'll get to that in segment 3, of course. But I like that he stood on that, and I like that he beat his chest. What I don't like is that there's not that similar level of frustration about any of the miscues that they have publicly. I'm sure he's chewing out the team. I'm sure the things that are going wrong, he's addressing them. I don't want to seem as if he's just letting everybody off scot-free. That's not what I'm trying to do. But when Sonny Dykes felt, in my opinion, attacked, he came in and responded accordingly. When Sonny Dykes felt like you were questioning him unjustifiably, he came in and reacted accordingly. And there was a frustration. There was a certain gruff to him. But every time the TCU has these mistakes that lead to a loss, I see more disappointment than I do gruff, than I see more anger. I want to see that frustration because I know you have it. But why don't I see it for these things? That bothers me. It bothers me. And some of the comments he made, when you combine actions, see, I'm about to transition, but when you combine actions, some things become a whole lot less defendable, whole lot less defensible. I think that's the proper word. And this is one of them. But I called for this. The Iowa State game is not only about what could happen moving forward. It's not just that. Because I said, hey, if you lose against Iowa State, you're probably going to lose against BYU. You're going to lose against UH. You're going to lose against Cincinnati. I started talking about the future, and that's part of it. But the truth is, TCU has came out not ready too many times. TCU came out flat from a bye week in a game where you literally needed to win in order to stay alive. Your season was hanging on by a thread, and you came out like you were BYU, like you had no losses this season. You're not BYU. You're TCU. You're a team that might be going 6-6 on the season, a team that might be going 7-5 on the season, a team that could be looking for a new head coach or a new offensive coordinator this offseason. You pick. But at the end of the day, if you want to tell me how talented that Josh Hoover is, you want to tell me how talented the Eric McAllister is, I believe a lot in that running back room. I think they're a very talented group. You want to talk to me about Jordan Dwyer. You want to talk to me about DJ Rogers and Chase Curtis and Lafayette. You want to talk about all of the talent they have on offense. Then why? Why is it that I can point to the Arizona State game and those 2 turnovers late? I can point to those turnovers in the Kansas State game. I can point to the fact that you simply did not put up enough points against Iowa State to win. These are 3 games that you lost. And I'm not even talking about the games that didn't end the way that you wanted it to. I'm simply talking about the games that you lost. If you're supposed to have all of this talent on offense, why is it that the offense is the one we always point to when you lose? Either the talent is not as talented as you think, or the coaching is holding that talent back. Tell me which one it is. You tell me which one it is. All I know is that the offense ain't firing, and I don't think the team is prepared. You can put that on the offensive coordinator or the head coach. And sometimes the offensive coordinator is just going to be the first one to go. Let's move forward, though, because Sonny Dykes, it's not just what I didn't like about the game. It's also about what he said after the game that kind of bothered me. It really did bother me what Sonny Dykes said about Iowa State post-game. So let's get into that as we continue with Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by Wayfair, and I know somebody who may be needing some new furniture soon, and that's whoever the next coach at TCU may be. I think is a serious conversation. But this holiday season is right around the corner, so let's be merry, let's be jolly, and let's do the whole pre-25 days of Christmas that starts in November. Whether you need to have more seating for your guests, or maybe cozy linens and fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month. So that's all month long, up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. So maybe you don't, maybe you like me, you like Thanksgiving. You want to enjoy the fall decor. You could do that for your house. You can get your house ready for a Friendsgiving, for a family coming over for Thanksgiving. It's not always about the what do they call it? The happiest time of the year. Sorry, I like Christmas, but it doesn't kick in till December for me. And that's when I start getting everything from Wayfair. But Black Friday has deals all month, so maybe I'll take advantage of that early. Don't miss out on the Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale up to 70% off. That's WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends December 7th. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Thank you for making this the #1 podcast network, Locked On Podcast Network, and we're leveling up here at Locked On Horned Frogs. I'm appreciating these I think almost 3 or 2.5 months in, so let's have some fun. I'm enjoying myself. I think that Sonny Dykes is a tad bit delusional. Either that or he is dodging accountability. Either that or he just really put his foot in his mouth. I can't quite figure out which one it is yet, but Sonny Dykes, in my opinion, inexplicably compared where Iowa State was a month ago to where they are right now. And I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that the point isn't valid. But what I am here to tell you is telling me after you lose to a team that had lost 4 games in a row, well, they used to be top 15 a month ago. I get visible and hopefully audible frustration from that. Because to me, that's loser speech. I'm disappointed that he said that. It's not even about the fact of, is he right or is he wrong? Technically, if you want to be absolutely technical about it, Sonny Dykes is right. I believe Iowa State was 12th. I think that's the number he gave. But that's something that you're supposed to say before the game. You're supposed to say that Iowa State was 12th a month ago before the game to lay out how difficult that this game is. When you say it after the game, it reeks of an excuse on why you lost. See, telling me that TCU lost to a team that was ranked in the top 15 or used to be ranked in the top 15 ain't that bad. That's not. Right? Like, I think at the end of the day, as someone who talks for a living, I do this all the time. I understand the way that phrasing works. And what Sonny Dykes just did was a master job of phrasing a truth, in my opinion, not in the most truthful manner. Because if I sit here and tell you, TCU just lost to a team that was ranked in the top 15, used to be ranked in the top 15, That sounds a whole lot better than TCU lost to a team that was on a 4-game losing streak. I mean, technically, both things can be true. Both are true. Iowa State used to be ranked in the top 25. They used to be ranked in the top 15. But guess what? So did TCU. And in the weeks since they left the top 25, I've seen every reason on why they are no longer in the top 25. But I don't think that teams get to claim, we beat a former top 25 team. Iowa State doesn't get to say that because this is not the same TCU that was in that top 25. The same way that this is not the same Iowa State that was in that top 15. This is an Iowa State that is led by a Rocco Beck that is, in my opinion, not the same Rocco Beck because he's being limited by injury. This is an Iowa State that is down half of their day one starters. I don't know how many have been gone in the last month, but I do know that they're down 6 of 11. 6 of 11 in that? Come on. What are we talking about? I was extremely disappointed in this because what it sounds like is, hey, this is a good team that we just lost to. I don't want to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. And Sonny Dykes knows nobody wants to hear that. We're about to face a good team. We're about to face a team that's better than our record. But then we lost to that team, and now we say it. I don't even care if you said it before. This isn't to say, hey, Sonny said that before the game too. You can't say it after. You understand how things are going to be taken. You do. You understand how things are going to be taken. And I think I'm taking this appropriately because that sounds like an excuse. When I say that certain actions stacked up next to each other begin to make things look a whole lot different, these are the things I'm talking about. I can allow Sonny Dykes to say this and just move on. Iowa State used to be in the top 15. That was a month ago before they went on a 4-game losing streak. But, they used to be in the top 15. I can let that go. But then I don't see the frustration on things that I think call for that frustration. I could let that go. But now these things are getting stacked on top of each other. I can let go. Going against Abilene Christian and you saying you didn't have a great week of practice and coming out in a way that you felt like this game was closer than it should be. I can let that go. I can. I can even let go you letting Baylor nearly come back. But then you able to stop them at the end. I can let that go. But then when these games happen, this is why you shouldn't let it go. And you see all of these things that I'm stacking on top of each other, it becomes very difficult to say I'm going to let all of it go. But the reason I say that Dykes is a tad bit delusional is because he also says that they don't have a problem finishing games. Yes, they do. TCU has a problem finishing games. And I understand what Dykes is saying. And maybe I'm not allowing for the nuanced conversation that this requires. Maybe I'm not. But what I'll say is you can point to, well, we had a bunch of turnovers and we missed kicks and we didn't have good special teams. And that doesn't always come down to closing. You're right. But my thing is you had a chance to win and you didn't. And I feel like I can point to, and then he gets snarky. This is the other thing. He gets snarky about things like this. So you hear the attitude. Every time I hear disappointment on a regular basis because I don't feel like TCU has performed up to his standard. And I feel like he's okay saying that. I feel like he represents it. But every time I hear frustration, it's always when I feel like he believes he's being challenged. When he feels like he hears the heat from his job, he comes on, he says, we're the winningest team, just so you know. When he hears, hey, do you think you have a problem finishing games? He says you don't get 6 wins not being able to finish games. I don't know. Would you like to go through those games? Because I don't feel like you finished well against Arizona State. That's why you lost. I do think you finished well against Colorado. You didn't perform well against Kansas State, so that had nothing to do with finishing or not finishing. You didn't finish well against Baylor. You held on. And yes, you made a defensive play. So if we're going green, yellow, red, that's in the yellow. You didn't finish well against West Virginia. You barely got any points. You got a field goal in the second half. Defense, once again, had to hold on. Offense went cold. You didn't finish well there. That's a yellow. You didn't finish well against Iowa State. You lost. So you finished badly against Arizona State. You finished badly against Iowa State, allowing a punt return touchdown, fumbling on your best run of the game. You finished poorly against Arizona State with those 2 turnovers. I think you performed and finished okay. I don't even know if it's acceptable with the way that you allowed Baylor to come back, but you had a win that keeps it in the yellow. You had a win that keeps West Virginia in the yellow. Like, what are we really talking about? This idea, and Sonny Dykes saying that we have 6 wins. You don't win. You don't know how to finish. I think this highlights, in my opinion, what is a huge issue. Focusing on results and absolutely skipping over process, absolutely skipping over how we got to these results. One thing that college football, depending on who you ask, either gets extremely right or they get extremely wrong, is focusing on how games are played. But I think it's an important part of evaluating a team. So you do get to these 6 wins and not finish well, because you didn't finish well against West Virginia and you didn't finish well against Baylor. I thought you finished well against SMU. Actually, I think your best finishing job came against SMU. That was great. I love that finishing. But it's just frustrating to me when I hear things like that. And it when you put them all together, it begins to feel like a lack of accountability. It just does. And I'll finish with that. Why are you only frustrated when you feel like you're being challenged? Why? I don't hear that frustration when you're having turnovers. I don't see the vocal inflections aren't the same. I hear disappointment. I hear that you're upset, but I don't hear that same intensity. And I want it. But moving forward, we're going to break down another narrative. And this is this idea that Sonny Dykes said after the Baylor game, that they are the winningest team. Once again, I don't know if they are anymore, but at that time, I think it was true. Once again, a misrepresentation of truths. And that's just the theme of the day. So let's keep it pushing as we continue with Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And if you're a fan of any game, then it's time to hop on FanDuel, because at the end of the day, what are we really doing if we're not trying to make a little bit of cash on the things that we love? I seen that BYU opened up as a 6.5-point favorite. Do you think that TCU is able to cover that spread? Do you think that maybe BYU opens it up and it's a double-digit victory for what is the top team? Well, actually probably number 2 team in the Big 12 now. Maybe you just want to go have some fun with your Cowboys or your Mavericks. You want to talk about Cooper Flagg. You want to talk about Dak Prescott or George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. There's a lot of things to do around the Metroplex. You don't have to only stay out in Fort Worth. You know, I'm an 817 kid myself, but sometimes the 214 allows for you to make a little bit of money. Do that. Please do it. Make some cash. And then, no matter of fact, put down a $5 bet. That's easy. You win. You get $300 back in bonus bets. Let's call that insider trading. Anyway, go ahead and go to FanDuel and make every moment more today. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. I'm fresh off the plane, right? So Saturday I had the same fit, but I was like, you know what? This right here, this episode right here, it wasn't deserving of a hotel room. Hopped on the plane, got back to the crib, turned the mic on, and said, let's get active. Let's get active immediately. All right. So love to everybody who came in on this impromptu live stream. Thank you. I don't like that Sonny Dykes said. Hey, I'm talking about Sonny Dykes said what? He said what? Now I'm going back in time because I didn't like this. We're the winningest team. Then I started thinking like, okay, because I'm the winningest. We're the winningest team. He didn't say but that's how I felt. That's how I received it. TCU is the winningest team since I came around. It felt very much so like a defensivist job. Well, it's a what have you done for me lately type of everything. League, conference, jobs, everywhere is what have you done for me lately? So I decided to look. What have you done for me lately, Coach Dykes? Because you talk about where you rank amongst the Big 12. And I started thinking to myself, okay, well, let's compare you to some of your peers since that big time season. I understand. That puts hands behind back, that handicaps things. But at the end of the day, saying that we are the winningest team in the last 3.5 years since I've been here is not only saying that you have the most victories since you've been here. It's also should be an evaluation of what you have built and what you have sustained. Okay, let's look at what you sustained. Because in 2023, 5-7, 10th in the conference. You had a 3-6 conference record. The next year, you had 9-4. Okay, you improved a little bit, made it to a bowl game, didn't stop at 12, got to 13 games. Kudos, 6-3 in the conference, but you were 5th in the conference. And you said that a game or a season like this would be a failure if it happened again. So now you're sitting here at 6-3. Probably won't sniff the top 5 in the conference this year again. 3-3 in conference as we stand here today. Unlikely that you're going to win all 3 of your games. Not only are you going to not have a season that was like last year, you're going to have a season that was worse than last year. Unquestionably a disappointment. I can get past that. That's not the reason I'm calling for his job. But my thing is, when you begin to say we are the winningest team in the Big 12, let's look at what you've done lately, or are you just living off of that one year? TCU is 20-14. It's a great year, wasn't it? I thought it was a pretty good year. But 20-14 in the last 3 seasons. 15-12 in conference play. BYU is 24-10. They were 11-2 last year, and they're on their way to being back into the title game, or being in the title game this year. They were one of the best teams in the Big 12 last year, and they're one of the best in the Big 12 this year. Arizona State, they're a transplant. They were 11-3 last year. They represented the conference in the college football playoffs. This year, they're 6-3, and they beat you. Same record, better conference record, and they beat you. Iowa State, 7-6, 11-3, 6-4. They're 24-13. They're 16-9. Kansas State ain't having that hot of a season this year, are they? They're not. They're 22-13 over the last 3 years. 14-10 in conference play. Texas Tech. Oh, we all know the Red Raiders, they paid a bag, but you don't do everything off of 1 year unless you're talking about that 2022 season. They are 24-12 over the last 3 years. So when you start really breaking down what it is that TCU has done over the last 3 seasons, I'm the winningest, or we're the winningest team in the last 3.5 years. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. It's a bad narrative. It's a misleading narrative. They may still have the most wins because they did have an undefeated regular season in 2022. It was a great year. Great one. I will not take that away. But what I can say is what you've done over the last 3 years does not measure up. It doesn't. So when I hear we're the winningest team, I think about what have you built and what have you sustained? And you haven't sustained anything. I go look at your peers. I look at teams like Arizona State that were dropped in. I look at BYU that's been there. Iowa State that's been there. Kansas State that's been there. Texas Tech that's been there. Matter of fact, you were bad in 2023. Texas was better than you. Oklahoma was better than you. Now, Oklahoma took a year. They took some acclimating to get to the SEC, but they're pretty good this year. Texas, they've been good this whole time. So I won't try to predict what Oklahoma would have done. But I can imagine that Texas, seeing what they've done in the SEC, seeing what they've done in the college football playoff, I can assume that Texas, if they stayed in the Big 12, would have also been better than you over these last 3 years. Bad narrative, not true narrative, misleading narrative. I'm not rolling with it. Man. I'm sorry. I don't think that Sonny Dykes gets fired mid-year. I'm not calling for that. But I see a lack of success in the last 3 years. I see a coach that, in my opinion, has more ferocity, has more intensity towards defending his own honor. And maybe he just doesn't believe in keeping his players or throwing his players on the bus. Maybe it looks that way. But I think you can be upset. I think it's okay to show public fire. I do. I think it's okay to show fire publicly is probably the better way to say it. But I think it's all right. And you think it's all right when it's time to defend you or your team. Admirable, not necessarily the way I want it to go. But then most importantly, this team has been unprepared too often. This team has had ugly losses. This team has failed at the end. And you've always pointed to the strength of the team. Maybe the most, I don't want to be on my own, jock or whatnot. But I think that the line that stands above everything else that I've said today is that TCU's offense is supposed to be the engine of their team. And unfortunately, in every game that they've lost, it's been the engine for defeat. You can point to that side of the ball. So now the question is, do you hold the head coach accountable, or does the head coach pull the offensive coordinator in front of him as the bullets are firing, use him as the shield, throw him to the side, and keep pushing for 2026? That's the only question in my view. We'll be back tomorrow because you know what? With all of that being said, I know one way that Sonny Dykes can for sure save his job, and I'll present it to you in the morning. I'll even change, even though I'm about to literally record, I'll change just so it feels new and it feels fresh. Whew. I can't wait, though. I appreciate y'all. Till next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.